Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 26 of Days Gone By, the review series for Gran Turismo's vintage and classic car lineup, many of which are not only great collector's pieces, but also can rival, and sometimes even beat, modern performance cars within their respective categories. And there are quite a few classic cars in particular that can do that. There are some really outstanding classics, which is great for classic enthusiasts, because that means that you can not just enjoy the cars for the fun of it, but you can actually make them useful as well. You can win races with them, and potentially even allow the car to pay for itself in race money. Now this is definitely one of those cars. This is one of the best PP relevant cars in the game. At the 500 PP level, or even a little higher or a little lower, this car is a force to be reckoned with. Now in real life, I'm not a massive fan of the Lamborghini Countach. I'm not a fan of it at all, in fact. It's just one of those cars I don't particularly care about either way. On the game though, this car is pretty much a must-have regardless of whether you're a fan of classics or not, because this car transcends being a classic. It's just a good car. Now this car is expensive. 217 grand is quite a bit of money. But for a classic Lambo, especially a fully premium one, that's not overly steep. Especially when you compare it to how expensive the Miura is at 15 million credits. That makes this car look pretty much like the bargain bin version of the Lamborghini lineup. The thing is though, just like the Miura, this car is a dominating force. It joins vehicles like the GSX-R4 from Suzuki, the Dome Zero and various others for being an outstandingly good track car. And the thing about this car is it's not a one-trick pony, or a one-trick bull in the case of this particular brand. It's a vehicle which is good in literally every way. The handling is far better than you would ever expect it to be, given that this is after all a classic Lamborghini, and Lamborghinis are known back in the day for being dangerous cars. Now obviously the handling isn't completely realistic on this car, especially when you tune it, but that's pretty cool, because you can actually have the car be better than it is in real life. Now when you look at the car, you'd be forgiven for assuming, understandably so, that it would probably handle and perform in a very similar way to the Lancia Stratos. It comes from the same era, it's from Italy as well, it's a similar looking car, it has that wedge-like shape, and it is after all a Lamborghini. So is it going to be as challenging as the Stratos? Well, no. It's no way near. The Stratos is a problematic car to tune correctly. The Countach really isn't. It's a really easy car to upgrade, and to upgrade well. It's very, very useful for racing, especially PP specific racing. And in terms of spec, this is one of those vehicles which really does do a lot with what it's given to work with. Now as far as engine, you're looking at a naturally aspirated 3.9 litre. It's mid-mounted, as you can kind of tell from the way the car looks, and it doesn't sound mind-blowingly good on paper. It's certainly not underpowered at 563 horsepower and 355 foot-pounds of torque, but at the same time that's nowhere near the kind of territory that you'd expect from, say, a classic American car, muscle or sports. But what it does with that power is really impressive. Now as far as weight, you'd probably expect it to be pretty light. And you'd be right, because it is. It weighs 890 kilos, which is less than most Le Mans prototypes, and the horsepower per tonne, thanks to that low weight, coupled with the power, means that it has 633 horsepower per tonne in fully tuned form. That's really good, to say the least. As far as its fully tuned PP, it sits at 582, and although I definitely would not recommend racing it at that level, it is, as I said, an excellent car for anything up to, say, just over 500, maybe 525 at a push. I wouldn't recommend taking it much higher than that, though. 500 pp is really where this car shines, and the reason why it shines is because it's not just a good handling car, it's extremely fast as well. Now the acceleration won't rip your face off, it's more of a relentless kind of acceleration. It doesn't feel particularly fast in a conventional sense. It certainly doesn't feel as quick as something like a Caterham or a Suzuki GSX-R4, for instance, but it has a speed which just relentlessly builds, and you end up going quicker than you think you are. And that's carried over to the top speed as well, especially in fully tuned form, of course. The top speed on this car is excellent. Around 250 miles per hour is superb for a classic, and a classic for its power, especially. Even in its lower tuned forms, say at 500 pp for instance, it still has a very good top speed for its power. As I said, it is a full premium model, and there are some visual modifications that can be done to it. This is probably the aficionado's Countach of choice. It has the purest design of the Countach before it became kind of boy racerized with the huge wing and the body kits, etc. And I like this probably more than the other Countach which is available on the game. That car is also very good, but this car has that classic purity. It feels like a more pure design. But regardless of its design, even if you're not a fan of the way the car looks, or, as I said, even if you're not a classic enthusiast in general, this is just a useful car to own, really regardless of your opinion of it. It's a car which is better than that. You don't need to like it to need to own it, and you do need to own it. It's a car which you can use online, you can use it in career mode. It's superb for seasonal events, especially at 500 pp, and it's just the kind of car that gets the job done in pretty much any scenario, especially for a classic of its spec. So if by some chance you don't own this car yet, it goes without saying, you should check it out. But that's it overall for this particular review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.